I hacked everything from day one. So when you talk about people figuring out how to go from day one, I made $65,000. That was my first job. And when I left to go on my own.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
First job, first year?
Yeah. Because I had two graduate degrees.
You're coming from that world where that carried weight.
Yeah. Yeah. But again,
I see this world.
It does.
Don't care about
No, it's not true.
Unless they need it. But
I hacked everything. I went to Columbia University. I got a degree from there. That's why I got my first job. I wasn't qualified. So I was learning before that.
No, but I think today.
Even today. Same
no,
thing.
But if you have a 4-year college person and a 4-year actual work experience person without a degree, who are you going to hire?
Depends for what.
Good answer.
Yeah, it's not.
But not something that needs a degree.
But you'll see in the podcast. I'll tell you. I listened because again, my goal wasn't to get it. People are like, I want to get a job. My goal was not to get a job. My goal was to make $250,000 a year. My wife also works, so I said if I make $250 and she can get to $100, so it'll be $350. At the time, I thought that was gonna be a lot of money.
Right.
But we had a mindset. When I got married, my wife was also in school. We were both in school and we both knew we were undergrads. We were going to go to graduate school, and I told my wife when we were dating and before we got engaged, I said, we're not going to see each other Mondays and Wednesdays, just on our schedule then. And she said, yeah, I get it, but that's the goal.
She's still working?
Yeah. She's a regional dietitian for a nursing home group. She has a different life now, right? She's a regional, so she works from home. She monitors all the dietitians in the nursing homes.
But both career-oriented.
Not career-oriented.
Spouses.
Not career-oriented.
Money-oriented?
Not money as in but independence. Yeah, they're independent. Want to be independent. I'm not relying on my parents. She's not relying on her parents. We never got a dollar from anybody, but it was like we couldn't have. Both our parents are okay, but we always just let's be independent people, and therefore we have to have a plan on how. So I always had a plan. It was always here's how I'm going to make money. So I started at 65. Within 4 years, I doubled it, and within 4 years, I doubled it again. So when I left after 8 years of working in corporate America, my last salary was well over $250,000 a year.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Do What It Takes podcast. My name is Tully Krause, CEO of Blackbird Recruiting. On today's episode, we have Avi Singer, founder and CEO of Showed.me.
Showed Me. We call it Showed Me.
Showed Me.
Yeah.
The website is Showed.me without an E in the word showed.
Yes.
Showed.me, the regular way, it was not available?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. A company is changing how nursing homes and healthcare facilities handle compliance training. In this episode, it's not just about software and compliance. It's about the real grind of entrepreneurship. What it takes to build something from nothing, lead a team, and deal with the highs and lows of being responsible for everything and running a business. Avi's story is one that every business owner can relate to. We're going to talk about the pressure of being a boss, how to build a team that actually cares, and what makes a good employee. Great employee. And how to stay grounded when the business feels bigger than you. Whether you're running your own company, dreaming of starting one, or figuring out how to be a better leader where you are, this one is going to hit home. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Tully. I really appreciate it.
Amazing.
Great to be here.
Now you started Showed.me 12 years ago.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
That's what LinkedIn says. So we did some stalking before the episode.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
But I saw you've had quite a few experiences prior to that. Tell me about time working at Google, Indeed, Blue Man Group. Oh, that must have been fun.
Yeah. So I'll tell you. I'll tell them about my background story. So, actually, originally when I started going to school, I went to undergrad in Turo, like many people. I don't know if people still do, but it was every yeshiva guy went to Turo back in the late 90s. And I originally wanted to be a clinical psychologist.
Why?
I liked helping people. I liked talking to people. I thought, based on a very basic experience, maybe being a counselor in camp, I thought, okay, I could talk to people, work with people. In undergrad, though, that's where you really learn, okay, but is this really what I want to do as a living? And I realized two things. So number one, I realized I wasn't quite sure I really wanted to talk to crazy people all day.
Fair.
And then the other was, I remember talking to a professor and I said, how do I become a psychologist? And he said, you need a PhD. And I said, well, how do I get a PhD? And he said, well, you got to do a thesis, and that takes 5 or 6 years of research and writing. I said, I don't know if I'm up for that.
Right.
I said, well, what else can I do? So he said, well, why don't you look into organizational psychology? I said, well, what's that? And he said, well, it's what motivates people at work. What gets people to be fired up to do their job and do a great job, and how you become a great employer and all things like that. And I said, that's actually fascinating. So still psychology, still helping people, but in a work setting versus a personal
You're not talking
setting.
to crazy people all day.
Yeah. So looked into that, thought, hey, this seems great. Applied to a number of schools. I actually went, and I think this is an important thing for people to think about. I actually went down when I was looking for a graduate school for organizational psychology. I actually went to all the school open houses. Yeah, I went in there. I went to NYU. I went to Columbia. I went to Hofstra. I went to Baruch. I asked a lot of questions.
The open houses at colleges are for you to interview them or them to interview you?
No, open houses are for you to interview them.
Okay.
Where are your graduates getting jobs? What does the degree look like? What does your schedule look like? I was already married, already had kids. I needed a schedule that was going to work. I wanted to do it as quickly as possible. So I actually went down and I probably interviewed them a lot more than they expected, but I asked a lot of questions. And luckily got into Columbia, which really is how I got my first job. There was nothing else that qualified me for my first job. I was learning, I was teaching, I was in school. But those days people would have their resume up on like monster.com and Hot Jobs and Career Builder. I don't know if those are still around, but I put it up there.
Indeed is still around, and that's how it started.
Yeah, no, I worked at Indeed. But yeah, no, the job boards are still around. Well, it's not a job board, so it's an employee board almost. I don't know what they call it, but somebody called me. Someone just reached out. And actually, a few people reached out, and I had some really, really, really interesting interviews. And it was simply because I went to Columbia University. I had that on my resume, and people said, "Okay, that's a good school. They have good education there." So, so I interviewed at JetBlue. Was a relatively new company then. That was an exciting opportunity. I interviewed at MTV. Fortunately, did not get that. Actually, I almost got that job, and then fortunately did not get that job. So that was pretty good because maybe I would have accepted it. Who knows? But then this company called me called DoubleClick. It was a online advertising company, one of the early online advertising companies.
Not Undertone.
That was not Undertone. That was later. So a company called DoubleClick. I spoke to the recruiter on the phone and I said, I have no idea what you do. Like, I don't even know what online advertising is. Like, the internet was probably 10 years old then, you know, and online advertising was still very, very new. And she said, well, just come down. And I went down and I interviewed, and I don't know why they hired me, but they did. And I got a job focused on employee development at this company called DoubleClick.
What were your responsibilities?
So they had been a big public company in 2000, part of the dot-com boom and crash.
Okay.
They've been taken private by two large private equity firms. And the private equity firms really believed in their mission and said, we think we can build you into massive businesses and sell you a few years down the road.
What was the mission?
Well, we think you're fundamentally great online advertising companies. If you build a better business than everyone else, there were a few companies doing it then. But they said, we think you can build a better business than everyone else. So one of the first lessons I got was, you often have 10 companies doing the same thing, right? Anything, you know, there were probably 10 Ubers at one point and 10 Airbnbs and, 10 Amazons. The one that survives, not necessarily the smartest one, the best people. If you have the best people, you will just simply go faster and go smarter than everyone else.
Best people, employees.
Yeah. So that's what they wanted. So they said, hey, you have 700 employees today. We have this vision. Private equity firms are brilliant, brilliant people. We have this vision of how to get you to, X millions of dollars in revenue, grow the company to 1,500 people. So that was my job. My job was, how do we hire enough people over the next few years to build the company to about 1,500 people, help increase the revenues, turn managers into directors into VPs, VPs into executives. And my responsibilities were San Francisco to Sydney. So honestly, had no idea what I was doing. I can say that now because it doesn't matter anymore. But I went in there, had no idea what I was doing, but I loved it. I learned a ton. There were great people there already who I'm still in contact with.
What was your salary then?
So I was lucky. I think, I had graduate school. I had a graduate degree. So my first salary was $65,000, which...
How long ago?
This is in 2005.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
$65K then. What is it, $100,000 now?
I don't know. I still couldn't pay tuition, so I don't. It still wasn't enough. Whatever it was.
No, but it's an impressive first year salary.
Yes. Well, definitely because I had a graduate degree. So yeah, probably with an undergrad, it probably would have been 45 or 50, but with a graduate degree and therefore this assumption that you had some knowledge and maybe not experience, but knowledge. Yeah, I was able to make 65, which actually, interesting enough, on my first pay stub, I was making less than that I had been making before when I was teaching and doing some other things because taxes. Yeah. So
I have an interesting question. Me coming from the Hasidic background, I tried one semester of college, got really bad grades. I think I was just juggling a lot at that time. Dating, 2 part-time jobs, learning EMS. But for the crowd that didn't go to college and is not from that world, what makes a good college versus a bad college? Why are employers excited to see Columbia on a degree versus, I don't know, Turo, Baruch, or any other college that's not? Why is Columbia one that's looked up to?
I think it's a brand, honestly.
But how did it? Yale, Harvard, like how?
So I think at various points they probably had phenomenal professors. The real thing is like this: is that you look at the outcome. right? It's no different, I think, in a college and you look at it like a yeshiva. Like where do guys go afterwards? That's always what you're looking for. Like when you go to a high school open house, I go to high school open houses now for my kids, and you don't really care who the math teacher is. Apologies if my kid's math teacher is watching this, but you don't really, right? What you want to know is like, where do they go afterwards? What happens afterwards? So when I would go to those open houses, I would ask people like, where are you getting jobs? And they were getting really good jobs.
How'd that happen?
How'd what happen?
Like, how did it become a brand name?
I don't want.
They got lucky. Like,
no.
One of our people got the president.
The academics are really good. They do have, again, I think it's very liberal now, and things have changed, and it's probably gotten worse.
No, but back in the day, what makes good academics?
I think they got great professors, right? The reason why the tuitions are very high is they're really getting top-notch professors. I would say multiple professors that I had there were experts in their field. Really,
math is math.
No, I'm not talking about math. I'm saying even in math, you can have people who are experts in their field, and therefore, if you go to their class and you learn math in their class, you are going to have a better understanding of math and its applications than going to anyone else's math class. That's the truth. There are certain professors in college where if you go to their class in college, and I had this experience multiple times, I would say most of my classes, okay, neither here nor there, but that's part of the degree. But certainly I can tell to this day, I can remember things that I learned with certain professors both in college and graduate school, where I understood why they were teaching at that school, and I understood how this would benefit me. So there is a benefit, but I think more importantly,
but a lot of colleges you can just apply to become a professor there.
Then those might not be the ones I would be looking to go to. For me, again, I'm always looking at the outcome, right? I'm always looking at, and I think that's important for people to think about when you're thinking about education, like something that's like, do I need a degree or not? One of the most important lessons I got, and I actually got this in graduate school. One of my graduate professors said this, and he said, I want everyone here to know something that's really important. You have to understand what your terminal degree is. Okay, what is a terminal degree? A terminal degree is what's the final boss in education. How far do I need to get in my education that I'm never going to encounter an opportunity that I can't pursue that opportunity? So know the field you want to get into.
A goal.
Not just the goal, but understand, are you ever going to reach a point in your field, right? Whatever you're going into, where you're not going to be able to advance or get the next job because you're limited in terms of your education or knowledge. So that's an important thing for everyone to know. So therefore, if you're going into accounting, you need that master's degree now. If you're going to certain business fields, whether you value it or not, you may need an MBA to get certain roles, and you just have to know that. You have to know that. And I was like, okay, that's great. That's important. So I was very focused on that. I was very focused on ensuring that once I started working, because once you start working, it's hard to go back to school. Before I get out to the workforce, I need all the education that I can possibly get to go as far as I can. Now, it's not really true, because while you're working, you need to do the same thing as well. So while you're working, you constantly need to be thinking about, is there anything that I don't know now or can't do now that's going to prevent me from becoming the manager, the director, the VP, the SVP, whoever it is? And some of these people think like, oh, I'm here long enough, I should get advancement because I'm here long enough. It's not. You have to be able to show and demonstrate, whether it's through education, whether it's through the work that you're doing, I am ready to go to that next step, and be very, very conscious of it. So that was really, really important to me in my career. And from day one, I was always focused on that. From day one, it was never like, oh, I want to be an employee. I want to do, organizational development or employee development. It was always like, how can I become a VP? How can I become an SVP? And what are the things I have to do in order to be able to get there? And that's critical.
What about people? So you're in the 5 towns?
Yeah.
What about people who didn't grow up are your parents career oriented? College, a big thing?
No. I mean, for their children, it was, but not like they didn't, but they were successful. But again, by not, and don't focus on the degree. It's what is it that I need to do to be able to become the CEO one day, if that's your goal. Now, a lot of people, that's not their goal. I was once.
But who knows their goal at 18 years old?
Well, you just need a goal for what's your goal for 19,
right?
And what's your goal for 20. It doesn't have to be that far off. Unless you have real aspirations. Like if you want to become a dentist, you're going to become a doctor, like you need to start thinking about that early on, because it is a path. And I mean, even myself, I knew I was going to go to graduate school. So I knew, okay, I'm on a 5-year journey here. I have to do undergraduate degree. I have to get into a good graduate school. I have to go to graduate school. My wife as well. Undergraduate, graduate, licensure. Like you kind of have to know what you're doing in terms of what do I need to do to be successful.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Was there ever, when did you have that aha moment? Let me try to open a business.
So people call me all the time and I want to start a startup. My number one piece of advice to them is don't.
Why?
Because especially in tech, 99% of startups don't work out.
Would you call Blackbird Recruiting a startup?
No, not a tech startup though.
Tech.
Okay. I'm talking about tech. Most people are calling me about tech because that's what they're really interested in. Like nobody's calling me about a startup and saying, "Hey, I want to start a grocery store." I was like, "Oh, okay." Mostly tech. So you're in tech. I want to start a tech company. I always say don't. A couple of reasons. Number one, it's again, most don't work out. And everyone thinks their idea is great, and it is. Everyone's idea is great, but there's so many other things that have to happen for it to be successful. You need to, you need to have good customers. Someone's got to do the sales. Like there's a lot of things that have to happen. So the truth of the matter is, through my experiences and working at DoubleClick, and then we got acquired by Google, and I went to work another company. Like I had the opportunity. So I had the opportunity to explore starting my own company. That's what it was. So financially, I had the opportunity to do that. It wasn't. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it because number one. You're not getting paid. Like when you're starting a company, there's no money. Like no one's giving you any money.
How long until you took your first paycheck?
Probably at least a year.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to really be prepared. Because day one, you sit down at your desk and it's just you and your laptop. You don't have a company. You don't have a product. I remember the first time I ever went to a conference for Showed Me back in 2013. We didn't have a product yet.
Why'd you pick this?
So interestingly enough, when I was working at tech companies, and my job was education. It was employee education, advance our employees, help them grow. So what I found was as much education I was doing, when I'd really ask people, like, how'd you learn how to do that? And it's like, what? Oh, how do you know how to do pivot tables in Excel? Or how do you know how to present so well? Or how do you know anything about the automotive industry? What would they always say? Somebody showed me.
Right.
So that's what it was. So the initial idea behind Showed Me was really a peer-to-peer learning platform for companies where employees could learn from each other. So,
great name.
Yeah. So that's how it came up. And what was interesting was I had actually gone to LinkedIn and said, like, why don't you make an enterprise version of LinkedIn? Like people need this in their companies. Like I need to know who knows.
For education.
Well, just for knowledge management. Like I want to know who knows this and who knows that.
They
like
have that now.
I'm sure there's many. I'm talking about,
right.
I was talking about in 2009, 2010.
Right.
So finally I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'll go do it. Start it. Spoke to a lot.
No one else did this?
I'm sure there's other companies doing it, but I'll tell you something interesting. So here's what happened. I spoke to a lot of smart people. And they're all like, you should do it. You should do it. And then I realized the second thing I always tell people when they want to start their own company, which is make sure it's a need to have, not a nice to have. So the bottom line is that although peer-to-peer learning and knowledge management are business critical and important, it's not a need to have, it's a nice to have. And that's a dangerous place to be. And most people, when they're approaching with their startup, it's like, somebody told me this is a really good idea. I was like, yes, but do enough people need it that they're going to pay you for it? And that's really was an important lesson for me. So 2 important lessons. Number one is you've got to have enough runway. You got to have a year or two of like financially to be able to do it till people are going to invest or give you money or start paying or whatever it is. It takes time and it costs money. You need I'm not a developer. I have to hire developers. Yeah.
So that's how you started. You had this idea.
Had an idea.
Business plan.
I wrote 20 pages I had some experience working at those tech companies I'd worked out in product development. So I actually wrote 20 pages of documents on what the product would do. I'm not a visual person. So I can't think abstractly. So I wrote like when you click on this button, this is going to happen. And then I sent it to a guy I found online. I don't remember how we found people online in 2012. Maybe right. I don't think Fiverr was around, but I found someone online, and for $1,500, he designed the platform. So I didn't build it. He designed it. And then I took the designs and I went around. They were clickable, like today you have like clickable designs. So he designed it. And then I went around to people and I said, hey, if I build this, like, what do you think? And people were very enthusiastic about it, and then I launched the company. I found a partner. So, I realized like, hey,
what?
I didn't want to be a fundraiser. Like a lot of my friends who were in startups were talking about the fact that they were constantly fundraising, and I didn't want to be a fundraiser. So I went to somebody who I knew and I said, hey, I'm willing to give up significant equity, more than people would normally give up, but as long as I never have to fundraise.
Going for investments
or
sales.
That's what fundraising is. Fundraising is when you're raising money to build your company. Yeah. I don't want to do that.
What about finding clients?
So that's another thing. I wasn't very good at sales.
Really?
Yeah.
You were super confident.
Yeah. It's the pushy part. I'm great on demos. Maybe my sales team will tell you today. I'm great at trade shows. I'm great on demos. It's harassing. I don't know, harassing is not the right word. It's really pushing the people over that line.
Have you ever learned how to do sales properly?
Yes.
And you still think it's
defined
as being pushy?
I still have a hard time with it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I don't think people regret it. I mean, we're years over 10 years into this. I don't think people call me with regret saying like, oh, I wish you hadn't pushed me into it. I just as a nature, I don't find it easy to push people to sign contracts.
I don't think that's what sales is.
No, I understand that. however the methodology is that you're using to get people out of run.
It's not convincing. It's not pushing. It's not being a nudge. I see it very, very differently.
Okay.
I think someone needs your solution. Someone has a problem. He can pick 3 solutions. If yours is the best, he's going to buy yours.
Yeah, but they're not always looking. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really have to get people to
it's educating.
Again, there's a lot of things to it, but the bottom line is that there's a lot of noise. You know, talking to nurses. I mean, we work at home care agents, so a lot of it is, again, it's pushing people to get their attention. But what I did though was is that I didn't hire any salespeople until I was over $2 million a year in sales. Like, that was something that was very important to me. That, you know.
So you did the sales?
Yeah, I did. I forced myself. So every job in the company, like, there's a lot of things that I no longer know how to do, but I was able to do in the early days almost every single job in the company.
You said you spent time learning how to do sales. Well, would you use a sales coach?
Well, first of all, when I worked at the at DoubleClick and Undertone and some of these other companies, we brought in, phenomenal sales trainers, and I would sit in on those. I always loved the education parts. I would always sit in on. I would hire them, these sales trainers, to come into the company and train 50 salespeople, 100 salespeople, and I would always take the training as well. So I did Franklin Covey and Dale Carnegie, and I did all those. There's a company called ExecCom I used over and over and over for negotiation skills, for presentation skills, for persuasion skills, all these things, that I would make sure to sit in all those. So I would take advantage. I always thought, again, like I said before, keep honing your skill. What's the next job? What's the next job? So I was always focused on more knowledge, more education, more information. So I did a lot of that. I also know a lot of salespeople, and I would use them as coaches. I wouldn't call them formal coaches because I don't know if I pay them, but
mentorship of sorts.
Yeah. Where I would just say, like, hey, how would you respond to this email? Like, early on, how would you respond to this email? What's your feedback on this meeting? What would be my next steps over here? So you kind of learn over time. I think the most important thing though for me was the shift. So one of the reasons I got into compliance training was I did start realizing after a few years that my platform, although it was peer-to-peer learning and it was great, people loved it, was a nice to have, wasn't a need to have. And that's really when I was like, wait a second, that's a problem, right? Because when the economy is not doing well or budgets are not there, like, that's the first thing that gets cut. And that's really why I decided to look for something else, and really by accident, sort of fell into compliance training with some home care agencies, and that's kind of how I got into that. But the most important thing was the conversation shifted, right? The conversation shifted from, peer-to-peer learning is great, and mentoring is great, and coaching is great, and knowledge management is great, is, well, you have to do annual training, right? And they're like, yeah. And how's that going? And like, it's miserable. I was like, okay, maybe I can make it better. And that certainly made sales a lot easier.
You're a phenomenal salesperson. I don't know what in the world you're talking about.
In this world with this type of sales, like, yeah, right, you're right. Like, this is my forte, is just explaining how my product, how my service will help you. What I'm talking about is the noise. Like, that takes persistence. And I'm not that kind of person. I'm not the kind of person who's going to call you 5 times a day. And even though I know you're going to thank me afterwards, even though I know you're going to call me 5 years later, I have clients of mine 8 years now. Every single 8 years, 9 years, they've been clients of mine. Even though you're going to be happy later on, but the need to be so persistent right now, I find very, very challenging.
I'm excited to talk to you today about United Refuah Health Share. If you are spending thousands of dollars every single month on health insurance, this is an alternative for the firm community. You should go check them out. It's not health insurance. It's a health share program. Me and my wife and our family, we switched over about 2 years ago. We've saved thousands of dollars. Our premium or the cost is $500 a month. They don't use the word premium because whatever those terminology is meant more for health insurance. But for the first 10 listeners who are watching this video and going to sign up using code Blackbird, you're going to get your 3rd month free. So that's something I'm very excited to share with you guys. Make sure to go check them out. United Refuah Health Share. See you next time. What would you say was the biggest challenge in the early days? Getting clients, building the tech, staying sane.
I would say getting clients, because once you have clients, and you have the capacity to start to really listen to what's going on with those clients. So again, the advantage I had in not going after like venture capital money or things like that is again, one of the reasons I tell people not to go into startups is when you raise money from institutional investors, you're on the clock.
5-10 years,
whatever it is, whatever the time frame is, and they're very pushy. They're like, okay, let's go. And you don't have time. So the advantage I had was I signed up a few big clients early on. in 2017 when we first moved into compliance. And I told them right away, I said, I know this is going to be better. I don't know if it's going to be better today, but I know it's going to be better. And I want you to work with me on this. And they were willing to work with me on it. And it was an amazing experience. I listened, got a lot of feedback. So I wasn't really trying to sign up that many companies. They were, but we started making revenue. And as soon as we started listening, and as soon as we started recognizing what their challenges were, how we're going to fix those, how we're going to correct those, that's when we were able to start accelerating the business. So that really was what got the ball rolling. And then, so that's hard. Getting those first few clients on board,
and getting big ones. So they probably took a while.
Getting big enough that they have credibility, right? So they've got, but then you get the ball rolling. Then all of a sudden you're saying, hey, I'm like, why should I work with you? Like, well, I work with, so-and-so. I'm like, oh, okay. That's something. That's when you get the ball rolling. That's when it starts. And then the next thing you have to worry about is, just how do you figure out how to grow the company. And that becomes the next challenge, which is when's the right time to hire a salesperson, a head of sales, account managers, a head of account management, a CTO, right. A CFO, should you take on investment? Should you not take on investment? Like once the ball's rolling, it's more the management of the business. So when the first phase is really just justifying the business. Or, why is this something that people should even pay me for? Right. But once you have that, then it's like, okay, now where do we go?
I saw this post yesterday on LinkedIn. You know this company called Ridge Wallets?
I don't.
You ever saw this type of wallet?
No, it's very cool.
Oh, wow. You've never seen this before?
No.
So it's not from Ridge, but Ridge is the most famous brand that makes it. It's a wallet, keep your cards, cash. And they're doing very, very well. Mm-hmm. And the CEO, I think, posted yesterday on LinkedIn, Sean Frank, Ridge.com. So they do very well. They're primarily e-commerce based business. I'm trying to find that post. His about section on LinkedIn is, I do stuff on the internet.
I do stuff on.
All right, listen to this post. Joe Rogan has a guy. Jamie, pull it up on the screen. It's a famous line.
Okay.
So we're going to do Tilly. We're going to pull it up on the screen. All right. It goes like this. What makes a good CEO? Being able to hear pitches and pulls in every direction and still finding the correct path forward. Your brand team is going to think brand is the most important thing. Your warehouse team is going to think operations is the most important thing. The CEO needs to see the importance in all of it and prioritize what needs the most attention right now. If you're going to let your marketers run the show, you're going to be running BOGO black hat affiliate offers all day. If you let product run the show, you won't ever release anything. A CEO needs to speak all the languages, but dance to their own beat. So that goes back to what you were saying is how do you figure out what's next step? CEO's job is knowing where to focus. Yeah,
I think I would say a little bit differently than that. I was so fortunate, going back to some of the early experience I had. I worked at DoubleClick. And some of the brightest people I've ever met in my life worked there.
Are they still around?
Yes. So Neil Mohan was the chief product officer. He's the head of YouTube.
CEO of YouTube.
Yeah. So all brilliant people.
He worked at DoubleClick?
Yeah. Yeah. And David Rosenblatt, who's the CEO of First Dibs, just brilliant people who have gone on, many people. I'm talking about 20, 30, 40 people at the company who have gone on to build $100 million plus businesses multiple times. Brilliant people.
Neil Mohan's the CEO.
And I think
you don't know him.
Huh?
You don't know him.
I don't know if he'd still recognize my name. I wonder. Maybe, but I met him multiple times. He was in the San Francisco office. He was a Stanford graduate. He was out of the San Francisco office. I visited there many times, spoke to him many times, met with him many times. He was a really great guy.
It's pretty cool to say I worked at the same company where the current CEO of YouTube used to work.
Yeah, and there's big people, like I said, big people at lots of big companies. But I think our goal there was to get everyone on the same page as to the goal, and then somewhat collaboratively come up with what should we focus on. I like that philosophy better, right? So what I do with my team is I always say, okay, let's be clear on our goals. So we had a leadership offsite in September, right? We spent a lot of time. We did all the white paper on the walls, all that, right. And then we were in agreement in terms of what we want 2026 to look like.
Is the goal ever not making company making more money?
Yeah, but how? That's what you're trying to get consensus. So that's what you want everyone to agree on. That way no one's playing budget either way. Meaning in that situation, it means marketing has their idea of how we're going to make money or wants to justify their existence. Product has their way to make money or justify their existence. Sales, like everyone's pulling.
Right.
What I think is important is if you are in agreement and you come in with lots of ideas, right? But if you leave there and say, okay, this is the revenue target for 2026. This is what we're going to build in 2026. This is what we're going to do in 2026. These are the verticals that we're going to service. That if you're in agreement that, then it's not that much pull and push. you don't have all of a sudden out of left field someone asking for budget for something, or that's not, because you could just go back and say, well, how does that fit into our plan? And that's what we've done since then. So we had this meeting, came up with the plan, and since then everyone's been sort of honing their team's goals and things like that for the year based on that. So it's not like and no one feels like, oh, I have to justify my existence or anything like that. So I disagree with that a little bit. I think if you have everyone on the same page, I don't spend that much of my time actually prioritizing for everyone. I have an amazing team. It's funny. People ask me all the time, like, what my end goal of my company is. I said, look, I have an amazing team. And that's just not me saying that. Like, clients will call me all the time and say, I love working with, I was a funny story. I always say is I had a client, very, very large home care agency, Russian client, tough guy, gave me a hard time. Wasn't easy to get in there, but I got in, and he's a great client of mine today. Shout out Boris.
Boris.
Well, I like to call him Boris, but he's great. He's a really good guy. And he called me one day and he said, Avi, the only reason I work with you is because of this account manager. And if that account manager would ever leave, I leave. And I said, okay, I guess I'll make sure she stays.
Yeah.
But then she went on maternity leave, and he got another account manager, and he called me back and said, you know what? I said, that's why I didn't say anything at the time, because we do. We have an amazing, really amazing team, just really great people. We're very fortunate to have a really good product. Our clients like the product. We're in a very good industry, that's growing. We love, even though it's hard, post-acute health and behavioral health, we like it. So for me, I enjoy it. Like, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But I'm fortunate. And not everyone gets that. Like, I didn't always have that. There were times where people said the product is awful, or it's not working, or it's not doing what it's supposed to do. But fortunately, we've built a really great team and a really great product, and we're in a really great industry. And I'm never afraid to go to trade shows because someone come over and say, like, hey, we're not happy with your product, we're not happy with the platform, we're not happy with this or that. I'm not saying everyone's happy. Sometimes you do have, calls and people are not happy with whatever's going on for whatever reason it happens. But for the most part, people are very happy to work with us. So it makes my life easy.
You ever thought about quitting?
Quitting what?
The business. Like
No, I mean, no, I enjoy it.
Back in the day.
Oh, for sure. A million times.
That was my question.
Yeah, a million times. That's why, again, you have to have an incredible network of people. It's miserable. People, the one thing people will never tell you about a startup, because they only see the glory, is for every one guy who makes it, the 99 guys who literally are ready to jump off a cliff multiple times. I mean, and I'm being serious. Like, to that extent, it's serious. Whether you've taken an investment and you have people's money, I take that seriously. Like, if I take an investor, like, that's serious. Like, I got to get that person back their money.
So back in the day when you were thinking about, like, I'm this close to being done.
Yeah.
What kept you moving forward?
I still believed in it. It just was taking longer than I thought it would. Like, I never really, really lost belief in what I was doing. But, you have those weeks where, you're tight, you got to make payroll, and you got to collect, and it's rough. You're like, why am I doing this? I had a great job in corporate America in HR. I was, and I worked my way up. I was a VP of HR when I left HR. Like, why am I doing this? It is really, really tough. And you have to have a good network of people that you deal with and talk to, and hopefully if you have investors, you have good investors. But it's also hard. It's also hard. Like, maybe we should have at some point. Like, there are companies that people don't see it, but there's like I said, a graveyard full of the 99 out of the 100 who didn't make it, and many of them longer than they should have, and stretched out a little bit longer, and things like that. But it's hard. It becomes your baby. Like, I meet some people sometimes, and I'm just like, I don't see it working. I don't want to be the person telling them that, because it's their dreams and everything in there. But it's I know. Anyone who's listening to this, don't start a startup. Don't
call Avi first.
Just don't do it. Don't do it. If do it at a point. I always tell people, do it at a point where you can afford to do it. And I don't just mean financially, like everything, emotionally, family, everything. You can afford to do it. And if it doesn't work, it's fine. You'll go back and do something else. But people come to me when they're very young, and rather than working in a company for 10 years or building up their skill set, whatever it is, their first thing is, oh, let me start my own startup because I need to make a lot of money. And I hear that. Like, I hear the stress with that. And that's a fair point. Everyone wants to start their own company. But particularly in technology, it's a very, very tough place to build a business.
How many employees do you have now?
I think we're about 50. Wow. Yeah. So we have a combination. We're completely remote, which I absolutely love. Wasn't always. In 2019, it's actually pre-COVID. We had an office in Manhattan. I was going in almost every day. Mostly developers, and they were not coming in every day. And I would call them and like, why am I the only one here? And they would say, we were up until 2:00 in the morning, doing this and that. And they really were. And I just said, is anyone going to come into the office? I said, no. So I said, you know what? let's have a remote company. We hire for that. We hire people who work well independently. It's part of our interview process, is ensuring that there are people who can work well remotely. We don't always make mistakes. Sometimes we hire people who really need to be in office. They need that energy. But we're remote. I think we're in 13 states. It's great. So we just designed.
Is there a culture? Because if your team is remote, it takes much longer and is much harder to build a culture.
100%. Not the same as I had in office when I worked in office, for sure not. But we work at it. I would say if I had to define the culture today, it's we're there for each other. And I think that's a beautiful thing. We have employees who are super comfortable putting on their calendar, I have carpool at 3, dance lesson at 4. We have many people who are parents. And I think our culture is, just do a great job, have each other's backs, be there for each other. We had I take so much pride in the fact that, we have an employee recently who was in Jamaica and was affected by the hurricane that just went through there. And right away, her manager just called me and was like, hey, what can we do? And I'm like, you just ask her what she needs, and I was like so happy with that. And then we had another employee also in another country who had some monsoons there. And her manager called me. And he's like, what can we do? I was like, I don't know. What does she need? And he's like, and I'm like, for me, like, so that's really the culture. The culture is be there for each other, respect the fact that people work hard, but also have families. But that balance is amazing. I mean, I'll sometimes have to call an employee because something's urgent, like 10 o'clock at night, and they don't see it as an intrusion. They're just like, if you're calling me, it must be really, really important, because I'm not that kind of boss, or manager or CEO. So that, and the clients see it as well. Like our team is just willing, and I hear it all the time, they're willing to do whatever they can for the client. So I think that's our culture. I don't think we have anything like, it's not a, pizza culture, coffee culture, anything like that. It's more of a culture of really doing good things for other people, whether it's employees or clients. But I think, as we grow the business, we are trying to build a culture. But honestly, if you hire good people, like there's stuff like I'm not that removed from the business, but I learn new things every day. We had 2 new employees our last few weeks, and they said, your onboarding process is amazing. I was like, it is? They're like, yeah, it really is. Like, it's buttoned up and it's documented. And they're like, sometimes, especially remote employees, you start your job, like, first couple of days, it's like crickets. Right. It's like, no, day 1, I met with that person and I went through this document. I had to do this activity. I had to do that. Like, the first few weeks are amazing. And I feel like, again, that's part of the culture. It's like, let's make sure everyone's having a great experience, is feeling productive day 1. So I think you hire good people, you'll have a good culture.
How do you set up a remote infrastructure to do it? How do you successfully set up a remote infrastructure?
Very purposefully. Never assume that because I decide my company's going to remote, it's going to work. That means you're over communicating, you're over documenting, you're over meeting. Like, it's very purposeful. Understand what it means to have a remote company and not have the ability to slide your chair over to someone's desk and talk to them for a few minutes, or slide over there or grab 3 people and walk into a conference room. So constant meetings. Don't have to be long meetings, but 15-minute, Zoom meetings to catch up on this or that or whatever it might be. A lot of documentation. If I'm in an office, I might know how to do something because you showed me, right? But if I'm not, then document what you did so that I'll be able to do it as well. Or if we hire 3 people, they'll all be able to do it. So we've gotten very, very good at that, and it's super, super helpful for new hires. Process. Very, very, but again, very like things you can take for granted in an office environment, you cannot take for granted in a remote environment. It really has to be very, very thought out and purposeful.
Which one would you rather?
I like remote. I think.
Which one would you rather?
No. I'd rather remote.
Rather remote.
Yeah, but I don't think everyone can do it. People always say, I want to build a remote company. Well, think of it this way, right? Assume it's 50-50. Assume that 50% of the workers in America or the world can work independently. Maybe they're introverts, whatever it might be, and are just fine. But there's 50% that don't. They need energy. They're extroverts. They need people. They need. So if you're going to build a remote company, you can't take your company to become a remote company, because you hired all these people and they're balanced. They're somewhere between the two. But if you're starting now and you make that decision, so when I was in 2019, we probably had less than 10 employees. So if you make that decision then, and then moving from there, you hire that way. So I love it. I really do. I think we get to hire great people all over the country. I've got people in, I was interviewing somebody yesterday. He's just started with the company, not interviewing. He put a meeting on my calendar. There's a new employee who just started. Yeah. Okay. I said, where are you? He said, I live in Minnesota. I said, hey, that's great. He said, yeah, but I'm moving to Colorado.
Love it.
Like that. I was like, that's so cool. I'm like, why? He's like, well, my fiance's got a great job in Colorado, so we're gonna live there, right? So that's amazing, right? When people are moving, my CTO lived in Colorado. We moved to Massachusetts. Like that part, like one of the advantages I think of remote is all these things that potentially would be disruptive if it was in office for us are not disruptive because that person just continues with the company no matter where they're going. So it's, we've had people move from New York and their spouse needs to take a job someplace else. They continue with the company. So for me, that's important. As an HR person, I want people who are going to come join the company, be here for a long time. I have employees who've been with the company for over 10 years.
Love that.
From day one. I have many employees who've been in the company over 6 years. Wow. And I think, part of it is because it works for them, like the schedule, the culture that we have works for them. But part of it is also like, I think they like the company. It's a good company. We try to take care of our people to the extent that we can. You
ever, when was it that you're like, you start thinking, hey, this might actually work?
How
long in?
Well, again, the first one didn't work out. So, from day one, it probably took about 5 or 6 years. But from when we started compliance, it was probably a year or two. Like
that's a long time.
What?
To wait to
look,
this might actually work.
But in software.
Again, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, world. So in software, the challenge with software, but people always say, like, why do software companies have to raise so much money? It's because you constantly have to build it. Like if I open a supermarket, there's a little bit, like I open the store, but there's a little bit of investment in maintenance every single year. When you're in software and you think about just how software iterates today, like you're constantly building, you're constantly iterating. Yeah. It's never like, oh, we built it. Now we need less developers. You have new features, new modules, new things that you're doing. So it's constant.
It's never like,
now
it's good.
The minute you coast, someone's gonna overtake you in 6 months.
Really?
100%. Yeah. It's so much easier to develop software now. So much easier to code now. So much easier to start a company now, all those things. So yeah, you constantly have to keep your eye on the ball. Like what else do our clients want? What makes life easier? Looking at the data, but absolutely. So it's one of those things that, yeah, you even though you might make $1 million or $2 million or whatever, like there are companies out there, like there was a company last year that closed out. I think they were doing over $100 million a year in revenue. They had to close. Yeah. Cause they were never going to make money. They just determined that they were just never able to actually make money. They had to invest so much money on an ongoing basis to continue to build their platform, compete with their competitors, stay ahead of other competiters, that they're just like, hey, we're just going to shut down.
Whoa.
Yeah. And not the only one. Multiple companies have gone through that. And have taken on investment, have employees. Like it's sad, but that's the challenge in software is you're constantly iterating. And the day you don't grow, you fall behind. It's very much like that. And you have to, your expectation. Yeah, the expectations are going to grow year over year, right? If you have investors, like, okay, we want you to grow 30, 40, 50, 60% year over year. Like there's, that's what we have to do. Yeah.
That's intense.
It is. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You have to have a certain mindset. People don't realize all those things. Like building a company, like again, getting off the ground is one thing, but then building the actual software business, you need great people. I'm so lucky. I have amazing people who work for me. Work with me. I don't know. They don't work for me.
I think good people attract good people.
I hope so. I mean, I think what's interesting about a lot of the people we've hired is most of them were passive candidates. And I always ask the question. There's 2 questions I always ask candidates after they start, not before. So number 1, why? Right? Well, why did you decide to join this company? And most of the time they'll say that the recruiter who reached out to me just made it so compelling. And I'm like, I appreciate that so much. I appreciate
it's a boring business.
What's that?
When the
we're working with us, like just like the people we have and like the things they're doing,
the reputation of the company.
Yeah, the company, like it's a company that people like and they're happy, and go online and you'll see like people like their company and here's who they work with and here's who you'll get to work with. So I think it's that. And then the other question I always ask a few months later is it what we promised you would be?
Interesting.
Yeah, always. And I'm so curious about that. Like, do we make sure we don't oversell it and overpromise and most of the time, like I'm so proud of the fact that most of the time people will say, no, this is what they told me it was gonna be. It was gonna be hard. It was gonna be this. It was gonna be that. But I'm loving it. I'm having a great experience, and it is what you said it was gonna be. And I was like, okay, that's important. Like those are very, very important values for me.
Schmuck. Let's talk about being a boss. 2 parts. What's the hardest part about being in the leadership position, and has the style of being a boss changed from when you started till now, 12 years later? How has it evolved?
Yeah. So I think first of all, being a manager or being a boss has certainly evolved a lot. Years ago, this sort of new leadership philosophy came out. You can go on Amazon and buy 1 million books on leadership, right? So everyone has a book on leadership. But the one that evolved, I think, has really become very, very big these days is something they call servant leadership. Servant leadership. Okay. Which is you see yourself here to serve your employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a normal thing.
Well, it wasn't always like that. Normally
you work for me.
Yeah.
Cover your pay. No.
Yeah. But that's what it was, right? So up until again, probably like 10, 15 years ago, that was
so sad.
It was, but again, that's how organizations were structured, right? So we have entry-level employees, and they become, it was just the way it was structured. It was organized that way. Even today in a lot of organizations, I still see it. And it's interesting. It sometimes makes our employees uncomfortable. Like sometimes they're on a call with another company and they see that there's that structure there where everyone's like scared of the boss, and I was like, oh, like it was awkward. I said, why was it awkward? They were scared of the boss. I'm like, you're not scared of me? Like they always just laugh. I'm like, okay, no one is, right? So I think that's what's evolved. I think you have to look at yourself. If you want great people to come work with you, then you have to be willing
you have to support them. You
have
to help
support them. You have to
them.
be willing to work with them. Meaning it has to be kind of flat. Now, at the same time, they're looking to me to be the hero, something, right? Make the decisions, make the good decisions, have the right strategy, build the right product, all those things. So you have to balance that, right? So it's a little bit of a balance of we're working together. Right. So we work together, but at the same time, there are areas where I have to show leadership, and that's in the direction of the business and what we're going to focus on and what we're not going to focus on. Like we've given up pieces of business over the last few years, and it was something that was $1 million worth of business. We walked away from it.
Why?
Didn't fit with the core business, and it becomes a distraction.
Right. So
I'll give you an example. Like we do healthcare training, right? So nursing homes, home care agencies, ABA, we do behavioral health. At one point, we had a bunch of McDonald's franchises who came to us and said, we've heard your platform is amazing. It works very, very well for a certain type of employee, like a frontline type of employee. Can we use it in our franchises? And I was like, who doesn't want to work with McDonald's, right? So we jumped right in. But then what started happening was, if we wanted to grow in that business and in food service, hospitality, we'd have to start building a library. We have to start supporting that business, going to those conferences and trade shows, becoming experts in that industry. And I got some great advice from actually an investor at the time who sat me down and said, you can't do it. And I said, really? Because it's such good money. And he's like, it's just not going to work. And I thought about it for a while, and I started seeing myself. Like when you're early on, you have limited resources, you have to be laser focused. And
narrow, not wide.
Yeah, and as long as there's enough space, like again, we have a massive market. You think about like the number of employees in our market, the trainer is like 11 million, right? So like he's like, you don't need it. He's like, maybe it's easy, it was easy, it came too easily, whatever it is, but you don't need that. So become the expert in what you're doing. Like that's really great. And who knows, maybe 10 years from now, you'll have the capacity. You'll hire a complete other team and they'll do hospitality or food service, whatever it might be. So yeah, those are the tough decisions you have to make as a CEO. And people are looking to you like make that decision. And sometimes they even doubt you. Like when I got up in front of the company and said, hey, we're not doing that anymore. And they're like, but we make money on it. That's money that we're literally saying like, we're not going to do that. Yeah. So hopefully in hindsight, they look back and say, okay, that was, the right decision. I hope so.
What's the hardest lesson you learned being a leader, managing a team?
Well, it goes back to like, what are the hardest things to do? And the hardest is knowing when something's not working, whether it's an employee, whether it's a product, whether it's a service. I'm an HR person by background. I get attached to people. I get attached to things, and it's the hardest one. I would say it's hard. It's hard to sit down with either their employee or their boss and just say like, we have to be realistic. This isn't working, or. Again, it goes back to the other products who somebody may have built up that business that I then said, we're not going to support that anymore. Or we're not going to pursue that anymore. Those are very, very hard things to do because, it's people's lives, it's people's focus, attention, all those things. And it's very hard. So I try to think through that lens now when I'm hiring somebody or when I'm thinking about a strategy is I want to be much more certain that it's the right decision. Mm-hmm. So I'll, even though we have a role that might need to be filled, I might take more time to fill it because I really, really, really want to be certain about it because I don't want to be in a situation where it's not going to work out. Whether it's a person, whether it's a product or service. Yeah.
How do you balance holding an employee accountable versus potentially killing morale? Like,
I think it's opposite. I think again, my company, we hire people who want to be successful. We don't hire people who just want a job. Years ago,
you're not a prophet.
Yeah, but years ago, I got interviewed by a company, it's a fascinating business, and they wanted me to come work for them in organizational development, help build the business. I interviewed a number of their employees, and they said, we don't actually want to move up. Like we're very happy here. Like we walk in the door, we do our job, we go home, we get a paycheck. And I went back to the manager. I said, this isn't for me. You have too many employees who sit in that bucket where that's where they want to be. I try to hire people who don't who don't just want to be in this role
Stagnant
for the rest of their lives. They want to move up. They want to become a manager. They want to become a team lead. One of my best account managers started doing tier 1 support, password resets and things like that, and is now my top account manager, and always had that mindset. Developers,
So how do you how do you figure that out in an interview?
You ask them. You ask them.
Everybody says,
No. A lot of people just said like, like I said, in that interview with that company, like I want to come to work, they do a great job. But it's and I think that's how you keep morale. So morale is not an artificial thing that you create, through bagels on Fridays and pizza on Tuesdays or whatever. It's something where if people feel good about what they're doing on a daily basis, feel like the product that they're selling or supporting or building is out there and is being successful and helping people be successful, like that's what builds morale. Like you're proud to work for that company. Whenever we go out swag, shout out to these really nice mugs over here. I always like to give swag that people actually use. So I'll spend a little bit more.
How do you figure that out?
What they'll use?
Yeah.
Quality. So if I'm gonna get something like a thing, we got the Stanley
mugs.
I'm not getting you anything else. Like it's gonna be that one. If I'm getting you like a hoodie or anything like that, it's gonna be a really good one. It's a warm one. It's one you're gonna wear, and because I want people to wear it, and because it says two things. Number one, again, they're promoting the company, but number two is they're comfortable with that. Like they're comfortable walking around.
Because it's good quality.
Not just good quality, but also the fact but people when wear good quality, if it has your logo on it, like, why aren't you wearing like a brand name item? But people
are you putting your logo on it?
Oh, absolutely. And people say, and my employees love it. They always say, I always wear that hoodie. I always wear that sweatshirt. I always walk around with that umbrella, whatever it is. And I was like, why? Well, first of all, it's really good. And number two, like I'm proud of the company. Like I'm proud of our business. I'm proud to walk around and people say, oh, you work at Show to Me? That's amazing. And I feel that way. I feel such pride when I go to a conference or a trade show or anything like that. And I'm walking around and people say, people see me. Again, not everyone's happy. We have not been successful for everyone. It's just, that's life. But when most of your company, and when I talk about most, like 90%, over 90%, it has worked out. It has been the right decision. It was the right thing. You feel good. You take pride in that. And I always try to make sure also when I come back from conferences to share that with the team, what was the feedback that I got there? What were people talking about? What were people saying? But I think that's really like the key to like the whole morale building, employee retention, all that. It's got to be real. And you have to, like I said, you have to interview. Do you want to be part of that company, or is it just a job you're going to come and you clock in, clock out?
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit what makes a good employee. What are things you look for?
So for our company,
does it depend on the role or?
There are, but there's also overarching, right? So the role, yeah, certainly, we're going to test people if they're developers on their development skills and if they're marketing and sales, whatever, we're going to test them on that, certainly. But I think overarching for us, there's a couple of things that we look at. So number one, because we are a remote company, are you independently motivated? And we have certain questions that we'll even ask.
Like what?
What kind of questions do we ask? Tell me about your current day. What does it look like? And you can start telling when people are really like their day's full. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever their current work is, like their day's full versus, well, and I wait to see if any emails come in, and then I wait to see if anyone hits me up on Slack, and then I wait to see like if there's a meeting. Like they have their day structured, they have their day organized. That's super important. You're not going to be successful at a remote company if you are not independently motivated and have that figured out. We're in compliance. Attention to detail is critical. We can't make mistakes. If we make a mistake, a client might miss an audit, might miss a survey, might have deficiencies because of us. So it's critical. So you hire people for that. Strong communication skills. Again, you're remote.
Yeah.
So you got to have those strong communication skills. You don't have to be an extrovert.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Right.
And these are things that we're testing for. Testing those writing skills, right? Write stuff for us. Interview. We'll do team interviews to see how they interact with multiple people at the same time. So I think there's a number of things that we just expect from team members. Showing up, being there for like I said, for each other. People go out on vacation or leave or something like that. And like, it's just the way that people like, the coverage is like you see it, you get the response to the email, like I'm out of office, but this person's covering for me. And I'm like, they're great. Like, that's great. That person's covering for them. And like, and then because you have those people working with you at your company, and they also have great attention to detail and on top of their stuff, you're like, I don't have a problem going on vacation.
Right.
For me, I would say one of the most amazing things that I feel right now at work, and this is like I talk to people about. I used to teach leadership, a lot. So at a lot of startup companies, I taught leadership for years. Still do it a little bit, and I enjoy it a lot. But one of the things I would talk about is you're doing a great job as a manager and a leader when you can go on vacation and most of the work is still going to get done. But if you go on vacation and come back and 50% of these things don't get done, you're a terrible manager. And nothing personal. You're just not doing a good job. You don't have the right team there. For me, that's where I am right now in my life. Like it's the sweetest thing. I could literally, and not just me, our CTO, right, decided he wanted to go to Nova Scotia. He's like, I want, and he's been working with us for a long time and works weekends. I mean, he's a real CTO. The guy will stay up all night to make sure the data migration goes over, like that kind of guy. And we have a few of those. Like we have some crazy people so dedicated. I can tell you a million stories. I'll tell you a story. We had a developer who I remember I called him and I was like, where are you? He's like, oh yeah, I'm at chemo. He was unfortunately sick. He's still with us today, years later. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm coding. I'm like, why? Why are you coding? He's like, what else should I do? I'm going to be here for 3-4 hours. I was like, seriously? I don't read a book. He's like, no, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. So we just have amazing people. So this guy, and so because of the dedication like that, this guy is a CTO of ours who we love, Matt Pope, superstar. Like our clients love him. Everyone loves this guy. He's like, I want to go to Nova Scotia. I'm like, go. I was like, what do you think is going to happen? And he's like, you know what? You're right. And maybe it's not 100% of the stuff, but 90%, 95% are getting done.
That's a great percentage.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's what we want. Like we and that's how I feel now. And I feel like if you hire the right people and you motivate the right people and they're dedicated and everything like that, then it's not about like, am I here watching what you're doing or not, or what you're not doing? Right. Like the rest of the company can have a blackout right now and you're the only one available. And like, it's almost like nothing's happening. Like it's the greatest feeling.
You ever needed to let somebody go who you really liked?
Yeah, all the time. I think I like all the people that we hire personally.
Oh, you need to fire.
Yeah. It just, what we try to do, honestly, and this is a part of my HR background. So there's two types of reasons you have to let someone go. They do something wrong. And I worked in tech for years in HR and I could tell you some crazy stories,
Share one.
I won't share any because I'll tell you what I used to do.
Okay.
I don't want to deal with them. But you work at tech companies, there are parties, there's agencies. I mean, we used to have one company, we had a house up in the Hamptons that they would take like agency people to for on weekends. And
okay.
So those create issues. I was so fortunate though. I had 2 people on my team working with me, 2 women, Dana and Meredith.
Okay. Well, we're going to do an editing. We'll cut that silence.
No, Meredith is great. Who I still have what to do with till today. And I would just say, look, I'm a guy. I don't want to hear this stuff.
Right.
So they'll go, and they also know I was from. So they say, you want us to get it first. Yeah. I'm like, so they would vet everything. Like all these stories, crazy stories that would happen. And there were, crazy stories, people would do, terrible. And then I would have to go break the news to them, but they would go do the investigation, the whole thing.
Right.
But I mean, I had a guy one time and the company was going to get sued. He was just harassing people. And I was just, and they kept coming to me and I was like, and I felt terrible. I liked the guy. And I sat down and I said, you got to stop. And finally I was like, you got to go. I remember I felt so bad. He didn't want to leave. And he's like, I'm not leaving. And we had to call security, which was terrible. And I felt awful. Dude. And I felt awful. So what I really try to do, so again, there are 2 types of firing you have to do. So some of them is like that, where they're turning to like a potential litigation or liability or something like that. You have to really be very quick and, speak to your labor attorneys and employment attorneys, things like that. That's important. But if it's not working out, I love the soft landing. I love that. I love being able to do that for people. I think it's a gift that managers should give to somebody if you really care about them, which is you sit down with them and say, hey, I just don't see this working. And I'd prefer to have this conversation with you now to give you the opportunity to find something else rather than just, pull the plug.
And how long do you wait? Give them a month? Yeah,
not that long. I mean, we have that conversation and you agree on what you think is an appropriate amount of time, but it has to have finality. It can't drag on too long, but
their performance during that time they're checked out.
That's fine. I'm not expecting anything else, but at least it gives them the opportunity. And that's for me, if I have to let somebody go, that's always going to be the preference to be able to go that way.
When it comes to promotions, what are some of the little things that employees might do that you're like, that person could be promoted one day?
Yeah, well, there's 2 types of promotions. So one is you're promoted into a role where you're going to manage others, and then that increasingly goes up. And then there's just a promotion where you have additional responsibility, maybe a higher salary, maybe another thing. So there's two types, right? So either one, right? So let's talk about the first one. So one, you start identifying people like, well, that person has good people skills. They probably could manage other people and do a great job of managing them and building up their skill set. So you have to have, again, purposeful conversation. You don't assume people can be managers. They have to be taught about delegation and coaching and feedback and all those things. But they start showing the signs of it. They start showing the signs of, if you have a new hires being onboarded, they're getting involved with that and doing a great job. They're jumping in, they're helping out, those things. And you're like, let's start having that conversation about you potentially being a manager and then what has to happen in order for that to work. The other one is they're just starting to show, advancement in their skill set. So I hired them, as an intern. I have a number of employees who hired as interns. So they hired as an intern, and I'm like, wow, that person's a rock star. Okay, I'm going to turn them into a developer. And they're like, oh, they keep honing their skills. Now you're a senior developer. It comes with compensation. It comes with a title. It comes with expectations, right? So you're getting more, but you have to give more. But you keep your eyes open from that. It's also part of retention. Is people want to be recognized, and one of the ways you recognize them is not just a gift card here or there or a little bonus here or there, but making sure that they have career advancement. They're able to develop their skill set, move into further roles. It's hard when you're a small company, you don't have that many opportunities, but you have to find them. You have to find the ways, even if it's just a title change and a small bump in compensation along the way, means a lot to people.
It's interesting. People don't really realize this. I think there are phenomenal salespeople. They are horrible sales managers. And then there are great sales managers who are horrible at sales.
Yeah. I mean, most great salespeople do not want to be sales managers. Right. Most great engineers don't want to be engineering managers.
Right.
I had to create tracks at the company.
Very different skill sets.
I had to create tracks at companies I worked for, big tech companies I worked for, to ensure that there was a career advancement for somebody who didn't want to be a manager. And I would sit with them and
how'd you do that?
So let's use engineering for an example, right? So I go to an engineer and say, you're amazing. Why don't you be an engineering manager? He goes, because engineering manager means you believe I can make 10 more of me. You think I'm a cloning machine. And it's true. That's what you expect from a manager, right? You are so good at what you do. I want 10 more. He's like, I don't want to bother with that. I want to sit and code. So what you do is, it's almost like they like in sciences, like at a pharmaceutical company, right? They'll have people just become bigger scientists, right? They become the chief scientist, right? They don't have any managerial responsibility, but in terms of responsibility, they have. So you can create a track where somebody becomes an engineer, senior engineer, and then become a chief architect or something along those lines, where it's very clear they're not managing people, but their responsibility over the code and all those things are huge. Same thing on the sales side. Somebody can become a VP of sales and not have any direct reports, because you believe that the book of business that they're managing is just huge. It's going to be helpful for them when they go to conferences. People see that they're VP of sales. But again, same conversation. I'll talk to sales manager. Hey, you want to manage it? No, why? Because I'm doing $10 million. I remember a guy who was doing $15 million a year in sales. This guy could sell, ice to Esco, like I say, amazing. And I remember multiple times I sat down with him. I said, come on. He had such good techniques. And I was like, I want you to teach those techniques. He goes, hey, teach techniques. I'll do that all day long. I'll do lunch and learns, all these other things. But I don't want to be busy with trying to get that guy to $2 million in revenue and that guy to $3 million in revenue, and that guy to 500.
Responsibility.
Not just responsibility. It's like it takes away from me being successful at what I'm doing. And it's like, let me just sit here, crush it. Let me get a big paycheck at the end of every month and don't bother me. And I think you have to create that space for that to happen. I think you have to be able to, if you want to be a company, you can't assume everybody wants to be a manager or is going to be a good manager. But I agree with you. Sometimes you have people and their skill set is so much more on the managing side of people, more than even their coding. Like you're an okay coder, but you're really great with people. So you get two benefits. Number one, you're great with people so you can manage a team. But number two, because you know coding, you may not be the best coder, you know what's good work and what's bad work. So, hey, why don't we make you a team lead? You'll have 10 engineers under you and you'll manage their workload and all those other important things. But yeah, I don't want to disparage any CTOs but a lot of them probably would say like, I'm not the best coder. It's just something like, oh, you're the CTO, you must be the best coder. Like I haven't coded in 10 years. I don't know, but they manage really well. They manage workloads. They manage that stuff really well.
As we're getting closer to the end of the podcast, closer to the end, how has your definition of success evolved from 12 years ago to today?
I think when you're starting a startup, you fall in love with all those big numbers out there. Oh, that's $1 billion company that got sold for this
unicorn.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's busy with unicorns, and it's very dangerous because a lot of those things, they're just inflated. Like even now, I feel I'm very nervous right now with all the investments going on into AI, and it's like a dream, but it's not necessarily like real.
Is that something that touches your industry?
Sure, it touches everyone's industry.
How?
First of all, simple AI coding. So where people were writing.
No, but on the front end for the customer.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be things we can build into our platform that make it much more efficient, make it easier to use, make it faster. Yeah, you have to be on top of things like that. But the valuations that some of these companies are getting, I was talking to a company the other day, they've got like $2 million in business and they got like $100 million valuation. Yeah, it's and that just sets these expectations.
Hold on, is that a real thing?
Well, it wasn't only because of what they're doing but a lot with the people who started. They were successful in the past. The assumptions they'll be successful again. So there's a little bit of that. But I'm just saying, but bottom line is someone's still expecting to get their money back. Like you put $100 million in, you're expecting to get 2-3x. Like this company will one day have to be a $1 billion business for you ever get your money back. Like that's what happens in those situations. So, but when you start out, that's what it is. You have these dreams of all that. And then it slowly starts shifting and you realize like, wait a second. If I build a successful business, I will have a successful outcome. Like that's just, so stop focusing on that so much. Stop focusing so much on what's my multiple, how much money can I get for the business, this, and that, like, and almost like designing your business for that, right? I'm going to design my business so I get the highest possible valuation. So, hey, let's make sure we talk about AI a lot on these, like, these pitch calls because, AI is getting great multiples these days or something like that. About 5 years ago, everyone was like, we use blockchain and like, that's going to get a better valuation.
NFTs.
Yeah. So I think if you focus on building a successful product, service, company, business, you will have a successful outcome. Those will go together. As long as you have a good industry, a big enough industry that, from a financial perspective, it's all going to work. You've done your research and said, this is a good place for the company to be. The rest will fall in place. So you just focus on less, you just focus on your day to day.
And I think for my last question, you said before, you do not recommend someone to open a tech startup, but for those people that already did, any advice you would share with them?
Yeah. So again, you'll have to fight and claw for those first customers, and just take it slow. Just treat them like gold. They're going to be your biggest advocates down the road. Like you have to understand that evolution. Like don't try to like get a lot of customers right away or too fast or anything like that. Like if you're really determined to do this, there's a blueprint out there. And the blueprint is it's still like a fundamental business, build a solid business. So you've got your product, you're starting to do this. That's great. Get customers on as quickly as possible, giving you feedback, providing that feedback. Treat them like gold, make sure that they're happy. They're not going to be happy day one. There are things that are not going to work the way they wanted to. That's fine. Keep iterating, show them that you're on top of it. And then through that, you're going to build your business. Like that's how you're going to build your business. It's not going to be through marketing. It's not going to be through advertising. I don't know what the statistic is, but like almost no companies who do like, Super Bowl ads are around anymore. Like, and that's not how you're building your business. Like if people just are happy, you have great retention. So there's metrics you can look at, like customer retention and things like that. So I would say, know that stuff, like understand what it's going to take to build a great software company. There are lots of people out there you can talk to and ask how to build great software businesses. I had many people I talked to and asked those questions to. And, and if you're determined, you'll hopefully you'll be successful, but again, it's rare. So you have to be really, really, really cautious and careful about it.
Wow, what a good episode. Avi, thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and we'll see you next time.